I am happy to be introducing Kevin. And there we go. Happy to be introducing Kevin today. This is certainly a presentation that I'm really excited about, really excited to start sharing some of the work that we've started recently, in large part to Kevin's hard work and a lot of effort on his part. This is certainly something we've been working on at the Little Rock Audubon Center for a long time. So I'm excited to start sharing kind of what this is looking like for us. And tonight's presentation is really one of the first ones kind of focusing on this work. So without further ado, Kevin Krajcir is a conservation biologist with the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission. Kevin recently set up a banding station at the Little Rock Audubon Center to bring Central Arkansas into several national projects, including a monitoring avian productivity and survivorship, also known as MAPS, and a monitoring of neotropical migrants study, also known as MOSI, as well as a long-term exploration of the effects of bird-friendly land management practices. The banding station began capturing birds this past spring. In this presentation here tonight, Kevin will share about banding, how work at the Little Rock Station has gone so far, and the hopes for these and other studies going forward. So I'm going to hand it over to Kevin, if you're ready, and we'll go from there.
Yep, awesome. Thank you, Uda. And I'll start by giving everyone a brief warning. If you hear some screams in the background, I'm at my apartment where the pool is right outside, so there's kids jumping into the pool and screaming. So just FYI, in case that comes through. But like Uda said, I'm excited to be sharing some of this work with y'all. Very excited to be bringing more of these efforts to Arkansas and getting folks involved with it. So let's get started. So just a brief outline of the presentation tonight. I'll kind of introduce myself, then we'll get into a bit of the background on bird banding, what it is. Then I'll get into discussing some of the efforts we currently have going on and some of our plans for banding at the Little Rock Audubon Center. And I'll touch on ways you could get involved, and we'll finish up for questions. So if folks have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat or save them for the end. I'll kind of answer things at the end just so I can keep the train of thought going. But I'll note here and throughout the presentation, all the photos you're going to see tonight of birds were taken while we were conducting approved research. Birds were handled and released safely. Work was conducted with proper permits. So just FYI, you're going to get some awesome bird pics, but just know all the birds were handled safely and appropriately. So I always like to start these presentations with a bit of background. I see a lot of familiar names in the lineup of folks here tonight. But for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Kevin Krajcir. I'm a native Arkansan, born Hot Springs. I've got my bachelor's degrees from Hendrix College, where I studied biology and Spanish. And after a brief gap year, I started my master's in biology and got that from Arkansas State University. After finishing there, I was working on a PhD at Louisiana State University, and then decided that that path was not for me. I decided to come home to Arkansas, and luckily in that transition time before I even got back here, I was able to line up my current job, where I work as a conservation biologist and the grants coordinator for the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission, where I currently work and have been for about over a year now, and get to do some really awesome work with great coworkers there. So really enjoying my time at ANHC. You may be thinking, well, what does he know about bird banding? Why is he doing all this? So again, proving that I can talk about this stuff, letting y'all know my background. I've been banding birds since 2018. I took a beginner course at Braddock Bay Bird Observatory in Rochester, New York. And this is something to note that, yes, I did have to travel to New York to get some training on this. There's a lot of well-established bird banding stations, well, maybe not a lot. There's some well-established bird banding observatories and stations in this country, but most of them are in the northeast. So New York, Pennsylvania, Minnesota are some places that come to mind. So it's not really easy to get this training unless you go to grad school and work with birds a lot. You just don't come across it too often down here in the South. doing that beginner course, I got to handle some of the amazing birds you see over here. So Black-Burnian warbler, black-throated blue warbler, just awesome. It was during spring migration, it was amazing. Then I went back in 2021 during my master's and I did an advanced course also at Braddock Bay, where I got to catch black-billed cuckoo, among other awesome birds during the summer up there. So continued my learning of bird banding skills at that station. Throughout my master's, I assisted with migration banding at the A-State Bird Observatory that we ran every fall. Me and my lab mates, shown down here, we ran that station along with our advisor and got to do a lot of bird banding and outreach and training through that. The past now 5 summers, this is our 5th year, I've been kind of the assistant bander at a local breeding bird banding station. Uda mentioned MAPS, that is essentially like a summer protocol for bird banding. And I'll talk more about MAPS a little bit later, but I got to do that for these past 5 years. And that's been a great help to me and to other students and volunteers who've been a part of that. I would say in total, I've banded, I may actually just be shy of 500. I ran the numbers more recently, but about 500 individual birds across 90 different species I've gotten to handle or band. So I'm very fortunate in that I've gotten to work with a lot of different kinds of birds. It's been great. So what is bird banding? And some of the language you may hear me throwing around tonight. Most simply, you can define bird banding as affixing a band with a unique code to a bird. Although you'll see that there's a lot more that goes into it than just putting on the band. In this picture, I'm holding a house wren, and these in my right hand are the banding pliers, and I'm holding out the leg, and you can see that silver band. It's actually made of aluminum, and it has a 9-digit code on it that is unique to that band on that bird. So that helps us know what that bird's number is essentially with that band. We'll talk more about the uses of banding here in a second, but simply put, that's what bird banding is. You may also hear me tonight say, I'm processing a bird. When I say processing, I refer to taking all the other kinds of data that we collect besides just putting on the band on the bird. So I'll go through a list of what those data entail, but luckily when we're able to handle these birds so up close like that, we really value taking a lot of other data other than just, okay, we know that this bird has this band. Well, we can learn a lot of other things by taking those data while we have the bird. You may also hear me say tonight with someone who does this kind of work or who bands birds, we're going to call them a bird bander or a bander simply, just like bird watchers, we refer to as birders, same sort of kind of jargon there. So briefly, I wanted to touch on the history of bird banding, kind of how it came to be, just go through the background of that to give you all a better understanding of the process and the science of bird banding. So pre-1800s, there was some history evidence that suggested that banding was used even in times before Christ to attach messages to birds. We've heard of messenger pigeons and things like that before. So banding in that sense has already been a thing. People also put their own sorts of markers or tags or bands on birds to show ownership. So falconers with their birds of prey would do that. So bird banding as kind of like a recreational or more of like a utilitarian sort of use in messaging has definitely been a thing for centuries. In the early 1800s into the early 1900s, we start to see banding taking on more of a scientific purpose. Some of the first studies of birds and bird banding were done. John James Audubon banded, tagged some eastern phoebes, and they're like fledglings to see where they would go and if they'd come back. And he came back to that site a year later, and some of those phoebes came back. So that was kind of like the first study to show that individual birds come back to the same site, what we would call site fidelity. And he was only able to, really be sure that that exact phoebe was that one by putting that marker on it, that band. In the early 1900s, Paul Bartsch began the numbered band system that is what's become our national bird banding program since then. We've seen people like Leon Cole establishing the American Bird Banding Association, which has since changed a bunch, but that was the agency that kind of was the first to oversee the bird banding program in the US. From the 1920s and onwards, again, it becomes more standardized, more regulated, which is pretty critical. And that is all thanks to Migratory Bird Treaty Act that passed right before the 20s. And, you know, at that point, we needed to be more serious about how we were treating birds, how we were doing science with birds. So different entities came to take over the banding process. Eventually, it was assumed into the federal government, where it is today. So at the highest level, bird banding is overseen nationally by the federal government. And it was originally part of the Bureau of Biological Surveys as part of the US Department of Agriculture, but we'll see in a second where it is today. It is not in the Department of Ag. And the early bird banding program was really shaped by Frederick Lincoln, shown here with a duck, looks like a mallard, who created the modern bird banding system that we still use and rely on very heavily today. So today in the US, the bird banding is most regulated, again, at the federal level. But today it's regulated by the Bird Banding Lab, which is part of the US Geological Survey. So this office, Bird Banding Lab, issues federal permits to researchers who need to use bird banding as part of their methods. So the first step you have to do in being able to band birds, unless you're working under someone who already has a permit, is you have to get the permit. So I just received this last winter my federal master permit, which allows me to oversee banding operations like what we're doing at Audubon. In addition to your federal permit, you also have to have permits at more local levels. So definitely throughout the United States, you're also required to have a state permit, and that's really for handling any sort of wildlife. So here we get our state permits through the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. Depending on where exactly you're working, like if I wanted to go work in the national park in Hot Springs, I would have to apply for a specific permit through the national park system. Of course, if you're operating on any private lands, you need to have permissions from those folks who actually own the land. And then academic researchers have to have permission from their institution or their university through a board called the Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee, which is mainly an ethics board to make sure that their research is being conducted ethically if they're using animals in that research. In addition to these like regulatory steps, the folks who actually oversee and implement permits for bird banding, there's a non-regulatory side that's really also important. And that is the North American Banding Council. So this is a group of bird banders and other entities who promote the sound, ethical bird banding techniques and practices used by bird banders throughout North America, so including mostly the United States and Canada. The North American Banding Council publishes manuals on the topic of bird banding, and they provide certification at various levels. Certification is not required to do bird banding. It really just shows that you have a certain level of training, and it's a good thing to have if you are able to acquire it. For instance, I don't have certification through the North American Banding Council, but I do have all my permits. Permits is what is absolutely required in order to conduct bird banding, because that's the legal side of things versus NABC, North American Banding Council certification. Kind of like a resume booster. It's really good if you have it, but it's not essential. So I hope to be certified one day, maybe in the next couple of years, but it's really hard to get those certifications because, again, those classes are usually offered at those big banding stations in the North and the Northeast. So not always necessarily accessible to get to those. So if you are banding birds, and continuing with talking about the North American Banding Council, it is a must that banders follow the bird banding ethics laid out by the Banding Council. And just to show you, we do consider this super important in all the work that we do. I emphasize this over and over with the folks that I train, and as it was emphasized to me, here's kind of the summary of those ethics that we follow. So banders must prioritize the health and safety of birds, people, and the environment. Bird safety is number one, other than our own safety. But if it's not safe for us, we're not going to be out banding birds. Critically hot days, it's too hot for us, it's too hot for the birds to be captured and banded like that. So we prioritize birds and their health and their safety such that birds are handled gently, safely, quietly, and in minimum time. We really work to minimize stress during this process. Admittedly, it is a stressful process to some degree because the bird was living its life. It didn't expect to get captured. But obviously, our hope is that the data and the science that we are getting out of this whole process outweighs the minimal stress that we're imposing on these animals. So we adhere to, super strict rules about how quickly and how safely we process the birds. There's even like guidelines about how and how long and when you should photograph birds to help reduce that stress. So we adhere to those photographic guidelines as well. Something as simple as you can't use flash on a bird. That makes sense. You don't want to like hit it with this super bright light and mess up its eyes. So, we follow those rules very specifically because, we care about the birds and we're out there to learn more about them, to eventually help them. And so we don't want to do more harm than good through this process. Banders must also design appropriate studies to advance a valid scientific purpose. This is something that has developed as bird banding has developed over the last couple decades. It used to be much easier to get a bird banding permit, but nowadays it's a pretty strict process that includes references, a scientific proposal, an application. You have to have a CV with relevant banding experience. It's quite the process nowadays, and it should be because we don't want just anyone going out and capturing and possibly harming birds. We want people who are trained, who are respectful, and who have references to be able to show that they are. So as part of that, you should be catching birds for valid purposes. You're not just catching them to, oh, this is cool, oh, this is neat, oh, I just want to put a band on it. And we're catching these birds as part of valid scientific studies to collect, submit, and publish data that will help our understanding of birds and, hopefully prevent their declines even further. Banders must also be accountable and strive for high standards. So you should constantly review your work and the work of others. If someone in the group is chatting loudly around the birds, you might tell them, hey, keep it down. We're trying to, work quietly to minimize the stress. Things like that. You're just working to make sure that you're doing the best job that you can. And to that end, you should be sharing knowledge with others to help improve their skills as well. Obviously, I already mentioned, legally, you have to obtain all the necessary permits and permissions to conduct this work. So that's critical and something all banders must follow. So that's kind of like the history and the importance of bird banding. Well, I guess this is the importance, how we actually use bird banding and these data. What are we getting from it? I mentioned this does impose stress on these birds. What's the point? Well, the point is we're getting to learn these really critical things that you can't learn if those birds don't have bands on them or if you don't get to handle them that closely. So many scientific advancements in our understanding of birds have been the result of bird banding and bird handling. So here's some of what we've learned and some of the uses of bird banding. Quite simply, bird banding helps us keep track of individuals. If you put that band with that unique number on that bird, and then you catch it again and you read that number applies specifically to that bird. There's no other bird with that band and that number out there. That's really important because, you may think the same cardinal that comes back to your yard, but to our eyes, I know cardinals, there's males and females that look different, but among male cardinals, they all essentially look the same to us. We can't really tell individual birds apart without some sort of way of doing that. And that way of doing it for us is through banding. So again, it allows us to monitor individuals, including their survival, their movement, their behavior. People have used that banding in all of those kinds of studies. And this is really important if you think about it for species of conservation concern. I'll show this picture. No, not yet. Something we use bird banding for at work, monitoring and keeping up with our red-cockaded woodpeckers, the populations of those that we have on our natural areas. So that's really important because we want to keep track of the number of individuals. We want to keep track of their survival. You know, how many years old are they? So we band them as chicks with a band and some unique color bands. And so we're able to tell, oh, it's this individual. Oh, they were born 5 years ago. We know that they're still alive. They're still here. We know that they're a male and a female. And it allows us to really keep track of individuals, but as well as populations of this endangered species of woodpecker. So just an example of why keeping track of individuals is important. We can also monitor population trends. I think I was kind of getting into that, but by catching these birds and taking some of the data, we're able to look at population demographics, how many males and how many females are in the population. That can tell you different things about the trends of the population. How many young birds and how many old birds are there? Same sort of thing. We can get estimates of longevity. So a banded bird, if you catch it again, oh, this bird has been alive for 2 years since we banded it, or 3 years or more. During some of the summer bird banding that I've done, we started in 2020. We captured a Kentucky warbler that year, put a band on him, and then last summer we caught him again. And when we caught him in 2020, we knew he was at least 2 years old. And then 4 years later, we caught him again. So we knew he was at least 6 years old at that point, at least 6. So I don't think that that breaks the longevity record for Kentucky warblers. It's probably closer to 10 years for them, for like really old individuals. But that's an example of how we're able to tell age of these birds. And conservation agencies like Game and Fish, you know, they use that data all the time to determine bag limits for hunting. So they ban waterfowl. The number of hunters that bring in banded ducks allow them to get an estimate of the population of ducks. And so it's really important for determining population trends in that way as well. Banding also allows us to determine movement patterns and migratory pathways of birds. So a classic example of this, determined a lot through like banding and capture data, are blackpoll warblers, as well as observation data for this. But blackpoll warblers overwinter in South America. And in the spring, we know that they come up kind of through the central, the middle of the eastern United States, where they spread out to their breeding grounds throughout the boreal forests of Canada and the northeastern US. During the fall, though, we know that blackpoll warblers, at least the adults, undergo this massive migration over water all the way back to South America. Banding data actually showed that the individuals that stick around on the coast and migrate kind of down the coast and then through the islands to South America, those tend to be the hatchier birds. So the very young birds that were just hatched that year. So we get an idea of, you know, adults take this pathway, young birds stick to the coast, and in the spring, they all come up this way. So through banding and through capturing these birds, we've gotten a better idea of their movements overall throughout the year and what, you know, pathways they might be using, what areas of critical habitat we need to preserve for them. And of course, like when you are holding a bird like that, there's tons of other possibilities of data that you can collect. Science is advancing all the time. We come up with new questions, new techniques, new ways to answer those questions. So yeah, I'll also point out, no, we did not catch all these blackpoll warblers. I don't know if that was a question in the chat, but I'm sure someone's like, well, that's cool. No, this is, I took this photo off the internet. That's the source there, but male, female, and then their baby in the middle. Very cute family of blackpoll warblers. So that's why we do banding, but how does it actually go down? So I showed you with that house wren, I was holding it. We put the band on using special banding pliers, usually affix it to one of the legs, gently crimp it down. Well, we don't crimp it down. We close the band around the leg so it slides around up and down the leg and around. Sits on the leg very safely. It's like getting an ankle bracelet for them. Totally fine. Then once we're done banding, we usually take other data, usually morphometrics. So things like wing chord, which is the length of the wing feathers, from kind of essentially their wrist joint, looks like their elbow, all the way down to the longest feather. Mass, so their weight, and then tarsus length, so the length of that long leg bone of theirs. Just kind of helps us get an overall understanding of body size of these birds. We take measurements of fat score. Well, there's me taking a measurement of wing cord on that same house wren. So again, kind of from the elbow joint all the way down to the longest feather tip of the flight feathers. We can also take a fat score, and to do that, we blow on the breast of the bird to expose the area right above the breast muscles. That's where birds tend to store their fat. It's called a furcular hollow, and then they fill that hollow up with fat, as you can see this catbird did. That hollow is pretty full, so I'd say it's even bulging with fat. So that fat is that orange tissue that you can kind of see in between the feathers. So you have the dark muscle along the breast, and then right above it, that kind of orangish tissue. So you're able to kind of estimate, we give them a score, usually 0 to 7, how much fat they have. And fat is super critical for, like that catbird was on his migration further north to breed. So he's storing all that fat for his journey north. Then we also take measurements of reproductive characteristics like brood patches in females. So females will drop the feathers on their belly to have a bare patch of skin on their belly called the brood patch, where they're able to incubate the eggs more effectively. It helps with heat transfer to the eggs. So that's usually a characteristic of females in most species during the breeding season, at least. Also in the breeding season, males will develop a cloacal protuberance. So their external cloaca will swell up, and it helps with sperm transfer during copulation. So it's usually a good way to tell that bird is a male if the plumage doesn't always tell you that. While we also have the birds in the hand, we'll look at things like their molt status. So are they actively growing in any feathers? If possible, we'll try to determine if they are a male or a female. Again, brood patch and cloaca can help there. We'll use plumage, something like a cardinal. It's super easy to tell if you have a male or a female. And then at the very end, we'll try to determine age. That's probably the hardest thing to do. You're looking for sometimes pretty subtle differences in feather coloration or feather structure, and that can tell you about age. And then we let them go. Once we have all of our data, we safely release them. They fly on their way. Sometimes they'll sit in a tree and kind of squawk at you. They'll be very upset. Sometimes they'll pick at their band and be like, what is this? And then usually within a minute, they fly on and carry on with their lives. Well, actually, I did have a picture. So these are those woodpecker chicks. I was going to show some of the other methods we use for banding in research. I mentioned with our woodpeckers, we put on these color bands. They're usually made of plastic, and this allows for re-identification without recapture. So as I mentioned, our woodpeckers, we band them as chicks. If you look at the one at the bottom on its right leg, which is towards your left, it has a silver band. So that's that aluminum band. And then it has a yellow band above it. And then on its left leg, which is towards your right, it has a black band, a white band, and a red band. And we use those colors. We can look through our binoculars when we see this bird, hopefully as an adult. He's out and about, flying around, and we're able to find him. And we're able to use our binoculars, look at the legs. We see those colors on him, and we go, oh, he's black over white over, or red over white over black, and yellow over silver. We know which individual that is because none of these other birds have, at least none of those other birds within our study area have that exact color combination. There's also different types of tags. So RFID tags and radio telemetry. These can provide some remote data when the bird is close to a nearby antenna. So RFID tags, it's usually like a little pit tag on the band or on the leg of the bird, that when the bird flies into like a birdhouse or towards a bird feeder, it drops a data point, this bird was here. And so that you get data about when that bird was near that structure. Another great example of that, and an example of radio telemetry, is MODIS towers. So like what the Audubon Center has on its hill. Whenever birds fly within a certain distance of that tower, they get a piece of data that shows that, you know, that bird, this species with this identification was nearby. There's also things that we call geolocators or satellite trackers, and they're used to either provide an estimate or an exact position of an individual bird throughout its movement on Earth. And it's, again, based on different technologies. Geolocators use light levels. Satellite trackers, again, use satellite technology to be able to send signals from the bird's device to a nearby satellite station. So yeah, there's different ways that we're able to get data from this like banding and handling process. Our work is mostly focused on just applying the regular old silver bands. We don't have any projects that need to use any of these sort of methods, but I thought I'd show them because it's pretty neat to see all the different things you can do with banding. So a little bit about banding at the Little Rock Audubon Center. So as Uda said, we've started this spring. We've had a handful of training sessions since mid-April. And the main goal so far has been to train a set of core volunteers on the essential skills of bird banding. So, you know, getting birds out of nets, putting the band on the birds, and taking some of that data that I mentioned that we like to take when we have them. So we're collecting as well some baseline data to support some research about upcoming land management at the site. We're interested to see how land management could affect both the demographics, abundance and diversity of birds, as well as their health status. I did some physiology studies as part of my master's, and so I'm really interested in metrics of health that you can gather from birds when you are able to take these samples from them. So we're going to try to tie all of that into some of the management that will be going on soon, hopefully at the Audubon Center. So we're getting some pieces of data right now about birds on site and how they're doing. And then we'll hopefully be able to compare that to data while management is ongoing, as well as, you know, after management has finished up. And we're taking some data for other collaborators. So whenever we catch a cardinal, I scan it for lice on its body, and I try to collect those lice as part of a genomics or genetics study for cardinals and their lice. We're also contributing to Audubon Delta's Urban Native Green Project, which has a lot of different hypotheses, but whenever we catch birds of a certain species, we take samples for them as well. So different collaborators, we're helping collect data for them as well. Here's the fun part, awesome birds that we've captured so far. Just go through some pictures, because pictures and getting to see these birds that close is what makes it so special, honestly. It's great to be contributing to science, but of course we're just enamored by birds. So left to right, of course, male and female indigo buntings, super, super abundant at the site. Makes sense, it's a nice open savanna style habitat. Probably one of the next most common things are white-eyed vireos. It's a nice adult white-eyed vireo all the way to the right. Some less common captures, but cool things so far. You saw the gray catbird earlier, caught him kind of towards the end of migration. So that guy was moving through. Then red-eyed vireo, awesome bird. I don't get to handle them too often, so it was definitely a treat. And then to the right, magnolia warble. I think we caught a couple of these throughout spring migration. They're a pretty common capture, actually, at a lot of banding stations I've been at in Arkansas throughout the spring. So, but they're always a treat, such handsome little birds. I think that one was actually a female, but cool birds. Cool. And then some of our, like, I don't know, maybe top tier birds, I'd say. Summer tanager male all the way to the left, a nice full adult male in his all red plumage. That was the least angry picture I was able to get of him. He was pretty fired up. Amazing bird. We heard this cuckoo earlier in the day, and then someone was like, oh, let's catch it. And then eventually later in the day we did. So yellow-billed cuckoo, just posing beautifully in the hand. Always a treat to catch those birds. I've only handled a few. And then if you notice all the way to the right, I'm holding that bird a little bit differently. So that's a second year, so a younger male rose-breasted grosbeak. And I'm not holding him like I'm holding the other birds because I do not want him to bite me. The holds to the left are called photographer's grip. I think the name is pretty self-explanatory. You're taking a photograph of the bird. And then to the right, that's what we call bander's grip. So if I'm banding a bird, that is actually the safest way to hold them. It prevents them from flapping, from kicking around, from hurting themselves while you're working with them. And so we hold them that way. We're able to take all the data. We're able to put the band on and do everything we need to do with them in that hold. And I held him that way, so he could not bite me, but nonetheless, he sure did. And I had a scar for about 2 or 3 weeks after that. So they have a pretty fierce bite. If you've seen them cracking seeds at your feeder, they can get your skin just as well. So some future plans for banding. As Uda said, we're hoping to start up some bird banding stations. So these are 2 pretty intensive programs run through the Institute for Bird Populations. They're called MAPS and MOSI. So MAPS stands for Monitoring Avian Productivity and Survivorship, and it is a breeding season monitoring program. So during the summer, usually from the end of May through early August, stations across the United States and Canada, they go out, capture and band birds at a site to look at, as the name suggests, productivity, basically how many babies are being had, and survivorship. Are the adults coming back and surviving year to year? We're able to get at both of those through banding and recapturing birds. If we start up this MAP station, and our plan is to do that next summer, the one at the Little Rock Audubon Center would be the 3rd currently active MAP station in Arkansas, and maybe about the 10th ever for Arkansas. There have been a couple of stations throughout the last couple of decades, but they usually last about 5 years and then tend to stop. So we would be a new MAP station, but the one I'm a little more excited about would be the Monitoring Neotropical Migrants in the Winter, or Monitoring Overwinter Survival. The name for this program is in Spanish, and it stands in the Spanish acronym is MOSI. And this is a program that monitors winter, as it says, survival of specifically neotropical migrants, but they're eventually hopefully going to include all birds into that. This station, or this type of program, has a much wider range. It includes stations throughout the Americas, and the Little Rock Audubon Center would be the first MOSI station in Arkansas, and we would actually be the northernmost MOSI station of all of them. So there are stations, I think, all the way to like Colombia, but then there's tons throughout Central America, the Caribbean, Mexico. There's a handful in the United States, like Texas and California, but we'd be the first and the northernmost here in Arkansas. And that would be looking at some of our wintering birds. And I think it'd be awesome. I don't get to do too much winter banding, so I think it'd be cool. So in addition to those stations, we're going to continue our bird-friendly management research and contributing to collaborations, as we're kind of already doing. I hope to recruit and train additional volunteers. It really does take a team. I can't run everything by myself, not at the level that I need to for these stations. So that's why I'm training folks now to kind of build a core group. And then once I have, a smaller group trained, we can include more people, and hopefully get some more volunteers out there. I hope to maybe one day offer workshops or training sessions to individuals or groups who are particularly interested. And we hope to make outreach and banding demonstrations more possible once our capacity grows. But right now, we're kind of staying with our little group. And that is, yes, a male ruby-throated hummingbird. We've caught a handful of those at the station too. I don't have permission to ban them because their legs are teeny tiny and they take special training and special bands. And he's gorgeous, but we just let him go after we get them out of the net. And that is actually how you hold them. It's called pencil grip or torpedo grip. They're way too small to definitely put in photographer's grip. You could bander's grip them kind of around the head, but we just do that and then set them on our hand and let them go. So a little background on them. Sure, you're curious about ways to get involved. Folks may want to come out to the station to, be a regular volunteer, or at least to see what we're doing. I'm going to say it eventually on that, not right now. I'm still working on getting our kind of core group trained. And once they're more comfortable handling everything, then I'm going to be more open to inviting folks out if they want to get the training themselves or if they want to see what's going on. But I need a group of folks who are also competent in the skills. But if you want to see more or be supportive of this work, I recommend you attend the upcoming joint meeting of the Arkansas Audubon Society and the Inland Bird Banding Association. It's happening this fall. The announcement's been out for that. It'll be the last weekend in October here in Little Rock, and it's going to bring together, our statewide Arkansas Audubon Society and then the regional Inland Bird Banding Association, which kind of includes all the middle states in the U.S. So I think it's going to be an awesome chance for Arkansans to meet folks who are doing bird banding throughout the region, and those bird banders to get to see what birding and bird banding and all of everything bird is like here in Arkansas. So it's going to be a really great conference, and I think it's really awesome that Arkansas gets the opportunity to have this. So please register, please attend. It'll be here in Little Rock. Come on out, it'll be great. And of course, you can always donate to the Little Rock Audubon Center. I'm sure there's a way you can say that you'd love this to support, you'd love your donation to support banding work. You can also donate to the Arkansas Audubon Society Trust, who in part funded some of this work that we've already got going. So, pay it back to them, thank them for funding us by giving a donation to them. Otherwise, that's really it. I'd like to finish up with some acknowledgements. So the Little Rock Audubon Center staff, especially Uda, who's been out there pretty much every time learning these skills. Also out with us are various agency and university partners. Those people we're trying to train up. Community volunteers, folks who are either retired or managed to take off a little time from their job to come out and learn this stuff. I'm so appreciative of those folks who make time for these efforts and come hang out with us and get to do this cool work. Of course, I think our funding sources too, Audubon Delta supporting this work, some funding. And then, as I mentioned, the Arkansas Audubon Society Trust for funding a proposal that I submitted to them to purchase equipment. So, if you're considering donating, please give back to them so they can continue to support this work or similar work. But with that, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So there were 3 or 4 that popped up in the chat that I'll just kind of read out, or I'll read out to you. So John had a couple, so I'm just going to kind of read them together real quick because they're kind of around the same topic. So first is, are blood samples taken to look for parasites and bacteria? Are feather samples taken to check for avian stress? And then his final, little different topic, have the chimney swifts been banded yet?
So regarding blood and feathers, I actually do have permission to take those samples. Right now, we don't have any specific research that's looking at those samples. We are taking them for collaborators' research. So some of their work requires a blood sample. It's much like you guys getting blood taken. We take it from the arm of the bird and then we patch them up, make sure they're good to go, and then let them go as we normally would. And feather pluck, it's just like clipping a nail, just like quick pluck. And you're able to, with the blood or with the feather, you're able to tell tons of things. Yeah, looking at parasites. You can look at, hopefully not bacteria in the blood, that would be sepsis, but things like other parasites. There's various hemoparasites that you can get an idea of that are in the blood. You can look at stress some way through hormones that are deposited in feathers. But what people tend to look at with feathers is they'll cut the very tip of it off. So the tip that was in the skin, they'll cut that off to look at, to get DNA out of it for genetic studies. But there's tons of things. Again, like we come up with all kinds of methods all the time for different ways to use these samples. So yeah, there's tons going on with those samples and with research. Hope I answered that. And then the chimney swifts, we are not targeting them with our nets. We just kind of set the nets up around the property, kind of between the shrubs, and catch whatever happens to fly into them. We're not specifically targeting any species. We're just catching, this is called passive misnetting or passive banding. We're just catching whatever comes into our nets. We're not actively targeting any species. So chimney swifts don't fly down towards our nets. Plus, I imagine that they'd be pretty good at seeing them, even if they did. And they're very agile flyers. Like mist nets very rarely tend to catch swallows or swifts, just because they'll be flying right at it and then they go right over it. They're just super agile. So we haven't caught any yet. Maybe one day we can expand the projects at the site to do some of that banding. I think that'd be super cool. I've never gotten to hold or band a chimney swift, but yeah, not yet. So
can I add one quick rider with regard to the blood sampling?
Yeah,
I'm surprised that we haven't managed to get a check from somebody, if you're doing this, for looking at avian flu and its spread or carriers.
Yeah, that's huge right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, luckily I haven't kept. Luckily, most of the news tends to be in the bigger birds and the waterfowl mostly. We're working pretty much exclusively with small songbirds, so hopefully we're dodging that and they're doing all right. But yeah, I mean, it's present, it's around there. If anyone wants to collaborate, I'm happy to send them some samples of whatever they need. So
just that we're the chicken state, that's all. And I was thinking of checkbooks from northern Arkansas.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Barry, I was just gonna say, Barry had a note in the chat too that ASCA has made some donations to MOSI over the years.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I interrupted. Any other questions?
If there's nobody else going to ask questions, I do have one more that followed from a satellite work.
Sure.
Are we able to look at the diminishing territory of raptors and the lack of livelihood and prey grounds?
Yeah, so with that satellite stuff, I haven't done too much of it, but I've seen some studies. You can put like antenna or like little radio towers like kind of around your study area. And then you can tag that bird with the transmitter, with the radio tag, whatever it may be. And you can monitor, home range, foraging range, whatever it may be. Don't know. Raptor biology is kind of its own world. You get very specialized in the types of birds that you work with. And again, as I said, we do mostly songbirds, but because I'm not too familiar with the raptor literature, I can't say for sure if anyone's done that, but there are definitely ways to do it for sure.
Okay, it's just something that came up. That was all my thinking.
All right, I'm going to give it a second for any other questions, but I did want to add too. So for those of y'all that have been to the center over the last couple of years, we have, really for the last decade or so, been doing some substantial habitat management and have been trying to get to this point. So a lot of pieces had to fall into place to make this monitoring possible. And, now moving forward, although this isn't quite a baseline, so to speak, it's a baseline starting now. And there's certainly still quite a lot of work to be done as far as invasive removal, and kind of, taking that oak savanna that's directly behind the center and making that habitat structure much better. We're also hoping in the next several years to be able to move forward with more glade management. We recently had a burn on the Nephiline Sinai glade, which is the first in decades and decades, really unknown since the housing was there in the 1950s. And then also in the next year or so, move forward with some bird-friendly forest management in Gillum Park. Those are kind of the next two big pieces to move forward with, in addition to the ongoing savanna management. And the MOSI and the maps in particular will be, really good ways to monitor and to see what kind of influence that's having on the bird population. So it's not quite a baseline, like there's not been any work done yet, but we're kind of starting here and looking for those changes now. So again, really appreciate Kevin for all the work. Super happy that we've gotten to this point. Just want to give another shout out for questions before I turn it over to Cindy for the business portion of the meeting. All right. Well, if there are questions following the meeting, I think most of y'all know how to get a hold of me. Kevin, if you want to put your email in the chat, if there's any questions for you specifically, you
Yes,
can
feel
do that
free.
that way. And let us know, and we'll certainly let you know once there's we're at the point with this station to invite other folks out to either get training or to observe or just to kind of showboat a little bit and show how fun it is to be able to do this. So thanks, Kevin, so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, feel free to contact me, emails in the chat. Hope you all enjoyed it. It's awesome work to share, and I'm very proud to be doing it. So thank you all for your interest, and that's it. I'm gonna head out, but thank you all.